Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Snekker Show, the woodworking channel where I would love to post weekly woodworking videos, but instead periodically post videos about fixing crap in my house that I wish hadn't broken in the first place. That's what I got to do this time. As you can see from the intro, I had a plumbing leak under the house, and the only way I could think of to solve this plumbing problem was actually with plumbing, pipe and fittings, and crawling around in the crawl space, which is my least favorite thing to do in the world, next to drywall and insulating attics. Also roofing. These are all things that I spend way too much time doing instead of playing around in my workshop. But hats off to the people who do those jobs for a living, because it's tough work. Anyway, for this situation, I had a plumber come out, a couple plumbers in fact, give me estimates, and it was going to be around $1,500 to $2,000 to get all the plumbing replaced, and that actually wasn't going to turn out quite how I wanted it to. That was just going to be to put in the pipe, but not insulate it. And I really, wanted to have the pipe insulated because that's going to reduce the risk of freezing and broken pipes later, and it also keeps your hot water hot in the winter and your cold water cold in the summer. So what I came up with was this handy little device, which I use to mount all of these pipes along the walls here. So we'll take a quick look now at how this thing was built and what it does, and how I use this jig to easily make a bunch of these things production shop style. All right, let's get to it. Well, before we get into the build, let's get some context here. The pipe that you saw in the beginning that was leaking was behind that cinder block wall. So back on the other side of this, there was some plumbing that came in under the garage floor. And I believe it was actually somewhere over in this area. Went under the slab, came over here by the washer and dryer, and came up through the slab right there. Those two pieces of insulation are, and there were some copper pipes in there that are now epoxied over, and also continued to run along the wall, or maybe under the slab, I don't know, and came up through the floor over here, and that went to an outdoor faucet. One of the problems that I was trying to solve is that every time I've run PEX plumbing before, I use these little plastic clips in most cases, and you put this up against the joist or wherever you're attaching it, and you put the clip on there and pound in the nail, and that'll, if this were a joist, put it in like that or like that, and it'll hold your pipe in place. And that's fine in most situations, especially when you're inside a house, but in a crawl space I wanted to make sure that the pipe was insulated, or inside a garage. And what you usually end up with is the insulation going around your clips like that, and you cut to go on the other side, so you just end up doing a lot more cutting of your insulation to fit around the clips. And then if it's right up against the joist this way, it's even trickier to squeeze your insulation in there, so you have to cut it to make it fit. It's just a huge pain in the neck. And I thought, why aren't these things big enough so that you can put the insulation and the pipe in at the same time? So that's what I got right here. Oh, another problem with these is that hot water pipe will expand after it gets some hot water in there. Again, it doesn't expand too much, but it's just enough that it will cause your pipe to flex a little bit, and that can put a little more pressure on these clips, which are also in contact with a pipe that's running hot water. So the clips get a little bit flexible because they're not extremely durable, and I've had quite a few of these things that have broken off after they've gotten warm and had a little bit of pressure from a hot water pipe pushing on them. So to solve both problems, I put together this little device, which allows you to put a screw in there, turn it open, put in your feed your pipe and your insulation together through this device. You can run your hot, you can run your cold, and then you turn this jobby here and it closes your pipe in there, and that ensures that your pipe has continuous insulation for the entire length, and also that isn't going to break like a little plastic clip will. I wanted to make sure this thing was durable, so I decided to use ash for the body and Baltic birch plywood for the cover. And the first step after getting everything marked, of course, was to go over to the bandsaw and do the rough cuts, just to knock out the majority of the waste. Then next it'll be over to the router table. After doing several of these the hard way, I realized it's a lot easier just to use a screwdriver and break everything off. Once I got the original prototype just right, I was able to use it to build this jig that had a couple pieces of sandpaper in the bottom and some blocks around the edges that held the rough cut bandsaw pieces in place, so I could use my router table and a flush trim bit to cut everything to an exact match of the original. The only downside is that it involved using a $175 white side ultimate flush trim router bit. Very smooth cutting, very easy to use bit. Now that sounds expensive, but when you think about the fact that I was getting estimates from plumbers that were around $1,500, that $135 on sale expense of the router bit was a very worthwhile investment. I finished all of the brackets by wiping on a single coat of polyurethane, and then before cutting all the existing pipes out, I screwed the brackets onto the wall. That way everything was set up for installation. Lucky for me, my parents stopped by for a visit. Less lucky for them. So my dad was able to help me by feeding the insulation onto the pipe and handing it to me while I pushed everything into the brackets. That made the whole job go relatively quickly, and we were done with everything in about an hour. Well, that was about 4 months ago, and everything's been holding up pretty well. The only thing that I had to do after the initial installation was make some more brackets, because some of the pipes were getting a little bit of flex in them, especially the hot water line after some pressure got in it and it heated up. It wasn't really necessary for functionality, but for aesthetics, I thought it would look better if everything was nice and straight and aligned. And then once I got to the single line after connecting to the washer and dryer, I just switched to some plastic strap to hold the rest of it in place, but wasn't really necessary to build the wooden brackets. It was easy enough just to screw those in. So that's it. It all worked out, and it wasn't really a project I was looking forward to doing, but all in all, as far as plumbing projects go, this one had more woodworking than any I've ever done before, so I'd call that a win.